My parents called to say they couldn't afford to buy me a laptop for college because of unexpected expenses. I understood. But later that day I saw their social media post, enjoying a cruise trip with my college funds. I didn't argue, I didn't complain. I simply smiled and let karma do its work. I made just one call. The next day they called me back, panicked, desperate. And my response was, I always believed in my parents. They were the kind of people who would say, "We're doing this for you, Lily." And I would believe them. I trusted their words, their promises, their plans. But looking back now, I see it was all just an illusion. A pretty little lie wrapped up in warm smiles and empty reassurances. Growing up in Los Angeles, my life had always been stable, not extravagant but comfortable. We lived in a nice suburban house with a neatly trimmed lawn and a backyard where I used to play as a kid. My dad, Richard, worked in real estate, which meant we had money, but only when he closed deals. Some months were better than others. My mom, Laura, was a part-time event planner who loved fancy things. She had a taste for expensive perfumes, designer bags, and vacations that looked straight out of luxury travel magazines. And then there was me, 18 years old, fresh out of high school and full of dreams. I wanted to be a lawyer, a good one. UCLA had always been my goal, and I had worked my ass off to make it happen. Late-night study sessions, extracurricular activities, volunteering, anything that would make my college application stand out. My parents always told me, "Don't worry, sweetheart, we've got a college fund for you." I never doubted them, not once. I remember the day it all shattered so vividly. It was a warm afternoon, and I had just received my official acceptance letter from UCLA. I was so happy I could hardly breathe. I ran home, eager to show my parents, my heart pounding with excitement. But when I walked into the living room, they were already there, sitting on the couch with weird expressions on their faces. Richard and Laura exchanged glances before my dad sighed. "Lily, we need to talk." I thought they were about to surprise me with something good, maybe a new laptop for college or some heartfelt congratulations. Instead, my mother leaned forward, her voice oddly calm. "We need to be honest with you, sweetie," she said, smiling just enough to make it seem like this wasn't a big deal. "There's no money for college." For a second, I didn't understand. "What?" My father cleared his throat. "Your college fund, it's gone." "Gone?" My voice came out weaker than I wanted. "What do you mean gone?" Laura sighed as if I was the one being unreasonable. "We used it." Silence. My ears started ringing. "You used it?" I repeated slowly. "For what?" That's when she smiled again. That awful, smug smile. "For our trip to Europe." The words hit me like a slap. I stared at them, waiting for them to laugh, to tell me it was a joke. But they didn't. My father just leaned back on the couch like it was no big deal, and my mother kept talking like she was explaining why she bought a new dress instead of paying a bill. "It was a once-in-a-lifetime experience, Lily," she said. "We deserved it. Your father works so hard and I never get to enjoy myself." I was frozen. My heart pounded in my chest, but my body refused to react. "But that was my college fund," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "You saved that for me. You told me." "You're young," my dad interrupted, waving his hand dismissively. "You'll figure something out. Scholarships, student loans. It's not the end of the world. Not the end of the world." I had spent my entire life believing they had my back, that they were helping me build a future. And now they were sitting here, acting like I was crazy for expecting them to keep their word. My fingers clenched into fists. I wanted to scream, to cry, to ask them how they could do this to me. But instead, something inside me clicked. I let out a slow breath. And then I smiled. "I understand," I said, my voice steady. "Enjoy your trip." And that was the moment everything changed. They left the next day, off to their grand European vacation, posting pictures of themselves on pristine beaches, sipping cocktails, dressed in designer clothes they had no right to afford. They spent weeks traveling from country to country, Paris, Rome, Santorini, living their best lives while I sat at home, staring at my future slipping through my fingers. I could have wallowed in self-pity. I could have begged them to fix it. But why should I? Instead, I planned. See, my parents weren't very careful when it came to finances. They used the same passwords for everything. And I had been the one managing most of their online bookings for years. I knew their credit card details, their login credentials, their spending habits. And that's when the idea struck me. If they thought they could take my future away for a few weeks of luxury, then maybe it was time for me to teach them a lesson. I spent hours on my laptop making sure I got everything right. 2 first-class, non-refundable tickets to an ultra-exclusive resort in the Maldives. One of those ridiculous high-end places where the smallest booking would drain thousands of dollars. Each ticket? Over 1,000,000 yuan. It maxed out their credit card. Just like that. I sat back, staring at the confirmation email with a slow, satisfied grin. They would find out soon enough. But for now, I had my own future to focus on. I made an appointment with my high school guidance counselor, Mr. Thompson. He had always been kind to me, always believed in my potential. When I told him what happened, he was furious. But instead of dwelling on it, he helped me apply for scholarships, financial aid, anything that could get me into UCLA without a dime from my parents. I barely slept that week. Application after application. Essay after essay. I poured everything into it, pushing aside the betrayal, the pain, the anger. And then a miracle. A full-ride scholarship. The email came in just a few days before my parents were due back. The relief was overwhelming. They had stolen my college fund, but they couldn't take this from me. I had one. Now all that was left was for them to come home and find out what I had done. And I couldn't wait to see the look on their faces. The day my parents returned from their vacation, I was waiting. Not by the door, not with open arms, but with quiet anticipation. I had spent the last week moving like a ghost through the house, preparing for the moment when their carefree, sun-kissed happiness would turn into absolute panic. And I wanted to enjoy every second of it. They walked in late in the afternoon, dragging their suitcases behind them, laughing about some inside joke from their trip. Laura was still wearing her oversized sunglasses, and Richard looked relaxed in his designer polo shirt. Their luggage was expensive, their shoes spotless, and their attitude reeked of entitlement. I sat on the couch, pretending to scroll through my phone as they entered. "We're home," Laura sang as she tossed her purse onto the counter. "Did you miss us?" "Not really," I replied, keeping my tone light. Richard chuckled, shaking his head as he set his bag down. "Come on, kiddo. No need to be bitter. We told you. You'd figure something out." Oh, I had figured something out, all right. I watched them settle in, completely unaware of what was coming. They were so busy reminiscing about their 5-star hotels and Michelin-starred meals that they didn't even notice the tension in the air. Not until Richard's phone buzzed. I knew what it was before he even checked. Frowning, he pulled his phone out of his pocket and glanced at the screen. His smile faltered. "Ha!" Laura, who had been pouring herself a glass of wine, turned to look at him. "What's wrong?" "There's an email," he muttered, scrolling through his phone. "Says something about a booking confirmation." My heart pounded, but I stayed perfectly still. "What booking?" Laura asked, setting her glass down. Richard's expression darkened as he read further. "Maldives. 2 first-class tickets. Non-refundable. Departure in 2 days." Laura let out a short laugh. "What? That's ridiculous. We didn't book anything for the Maldives." His face had turned pale. "Then why is our credit card maxed out?" That was it. The moment I had been waiting for. I stood up, stretching lazily. "Everything okay?" I asked, forcing my voice to sound casual. Laura whipped around to face me. "Do you know anything about this?" I tilted my head, pretending to think. "Maldives, huh? That's a pretty expensive trip. But hey, didn't you say vacations are once-in-a-lifetime experiences? You deserve it." Richard's face twisted in confusion before realization started creeping in. His jaw clenched. "Lily." I smiled. "Did you do this?" His voice was dangerously low now, his hands tightening around his phone. I shrugged. "Define this." Laura's breath hitched. "Oh my God." She turned to her husband. "She used our card." Richard's fist slammed onto the counter. "Lily." His voice echoed through the house, but I didn't flinch. Instead, I leaned against the back of the couch, enjoying the sheer panic unfolding in front of me. "You took our money?" Laura screeched, her carefully curated composure cracking. "That was our money. Our credit. Our money." I repeated, laughing bitterly. "You mean the money that was supposed to pay for my college?" "That money. That is completely different." Richard snapped. "Is it?" I challenged. "Because from where I'm standing, I just did exactly what you did. I used your money for a trip. A once-in-a-lifetime experience, right? Laura opened her mouth, then closed it, her face twisting in fury. This isn't funny, Lily. I crossed my arms. I'm not laughing. Richard was already on the phone with the credit card company, pacing furiously. There has to be a way to cancel this, he muttered. I watched him, waiting for the moment when he'd finally realize the truth. A minute later, his shoulders tensed. His face turned an unhealthy shade of red. What do you mean we can't cancel? He barked into the phone. Laura snatched his phone out of his hands and tried herself. No, listen. We didn't make this purchase. We were hacked. We need to cancel the tickets. She stopped abruptly. I knew what the agent on the other end had just told her. The only way to cancel was to show up at the airport in person. Laura's lips parted in shock. Richard took the phone back, his voice shaking with rage. So what? You're telling me we're stuck with this? I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. Ouch. That sucks. Richard slammed his phone onto the counter, his breathing ragged. You little careful, I interrupted, tilting my head. You wouldn't want to say something you'll regret. His nostrils flared. You're going to fix this. Right now. I pretended to consider it. No. I don't think I will. Laura's eyes were practically bulging out of her head. Lily, this is fraud. Do you even understand what you've done? I grinned. Fraud? Like promising your child a college education and then stealing every penny of it for yourselves? Laura stammered, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Richard turned his glare on me. You have no idea what you've done, Lily. You think this is funny? You think this is some kind of game? I stared at him for a moment before speaking. You stole my future. I said, my voice suddenly quiet. You looked me in the eyes and told me to figure it out like my dreams didn't matter. Like I didn't matter. Laura had audacity to scoff. Don't be dramatic. I laughed. It wasn't a nice laugh. Dramatic. I repeated. You think this is dramatic? You haven't even seen dramatic yet. Richard exhaled sharply, rubbing his temples. We'll fix this, he muttered. We'll find a way. Oh, good luck with that, I said. Considering you just drained all your savings on that Europe trip. They both froze. I nodded. Yeah, I checked. You guys are broke. Silence. The weight of reality finally seemed to hit them. They had maxed out their credit. They had spent every dime on themselves. And now, thanks to me, they were trapped. Laura shook her head, still in denial. This is a nightmare. No, I corrected. This is karma. I picked up my phone and made a show of checking the time. Anyway, I've got stuff to do. Just wanted to see your faces when you found out. I turned to leave. But before I walked out, I glanced over my shoulder one last time. Oh, by the way, I said casually, I got a full scholarship to UCLA. I don't need you anymore. And with that, I walked away, leaving them standing there in stunned, helpless silence. They had stolen my future. So I took something from them too. And the best part? I didn't even have to break a single law to do it. I thought that would be the end of it. That after the initial shock, my parents would accept their fate and deal with the mess they had created. But I had underestimated just how desperate and selfish they could be. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of voices, loud, panicked, and filled with anger. I stayed in bed for a moment, listening. Richard was yelling at someone on the phone, his words clipped and furious. Laura was pacing, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. I smiled to myself. Rolling out of bed, I took my time getting dressed before heading downstairs. I found them in the kitchen, both looking exhausted and miserable. The empty coffee cups and scattered papers on the table told me they had been up all night, probably trying to undo the damage. Laura spotted me first. Oh, look who decided to show up, she said bitterly. Richard slammed his phone down. Lily, this has gone too far. I grabbed a banana from the counter and peeled it slowly. Has it? You have no idea what you've done, he snapped. We're completely screwed because of you. I took a bite of my banana, chewing thoughtfully. Interesting. You didn't seem too concerned when I was the one who was screwed over. Laura groaned, rubbing her temples. We don't have time for this, Lily. We need to fix this now. I leaned against the counter, crossing my arms. Fix what exactly? The fact that you lost all your money? Or the fact that I didn't just roll over and let you walk all over me? Richard stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. You think you're so smart, don't you? That you won. I raised an eyebrow. Didn't I? Laura let out a sharp breath. Enough. We're your parents, Lily. You have no right to treat us like this. That made me laugh. Oh, but you had every right to take the money that was meant for my future? To throw it away on a luxury trip while I was left with nothing? I shook my head. Sorry, but respect is earned, not given. And you lost mine a long time ago. Richard's nostrils flared. This isn't over. We'll find a way to fix this. I smirked. Good luck. I left them standing there, seething, and went to my room. But I knew this wasn't the end. My parents were the type who never accepted defeat easily, and I had a feeling they weren't going to just sit back and accept what I had done. And I was right. Later that day, I got a call from my bank. The woman on the other end sounded apologetic. Miss Carter, we just received a request from your parents to access your savings account. They claimed it was a mistake that your name was listed as the sole owner. I almost laughed out loud. Oh, really? And what did you tell them? She hesitated. We told them that since you are legally an adult, they have no authority over your finances. I grinned. Good answer. We just wanted to confirm that you were aware of this situation. She continued. Would you like us to put an additional security measure in place? Yes, please, I said immediately. Lock everything down. No changes unless I approve them in person. She assured me it would be done and wished me luck. I hung up, shaking my head. They were desperate. Desperate enough to try and take what little I had left. I decided to pay Jessica a visit. She had been my rock through all of this, the only person who had truly been in my corner. I drove over to her house and she greeted me with a knowing look the second she opened the door. So, she said, stepping aside to let me in. How's the downfall of the Carter Empire going? I flopped onto her couch. Oh, you know. Chaos. Panic. Desperation. The usual. She laughed, sitting beside me. Are they still trying to undo what you did? I nodded. They tried to access my bank account today. Her mouth dropped open. Are you serious? Yup. I leaned back. They're scrambling. They're out of money, out of options, and now they're just trying anything they can think of. Jessica shook her head in disgust. That's so messed up. They actually thought they could steal from you again. I smirked. They're getting exactly what they deserve. She studied me for a moment. You don't feel bad at all? I thought about it. I really did. But the answer was simple. No, I said. Not even a little. Jessica grinned. Good. They don't deserve your guilt. She was right. My parents had made their choice. They had put themselves first, without a second thought about how it would affect me. And now they were paying the price. But something told me they weren't done yet. When I got home later that night, I found my parents in the living room, whispering to each other. The second they saw me, they went silent. I narrowed my eyes. What now? Richard forced a smile. But it didn't reach his eyes. Lily, we've been talking and we think we should all sit down and come to a solution together. Laura nodded, plastering on her best fake sympathy. We just want what's best for you, honey. I snorted. Now you do. Richard sighed. Look, we all made mistakes. Let's just move past it. I tilted my head. Define move past it. Laura hesitated. While we were thinking, maybe you could use some of your scholarship money to help us out. I stared at her, waiting for her to start laughing. But she was dead serious. You're joking, I said flatly. We're family, Lily, Richard said. Family helps each other. I let out a slow breath. You weren't thinking about family when you drained my college fund. Laura rolled her eyes. It's just temporary. Just enough to help us recover. No, I interrupted. Richard's jaw clenched. Lily, don't be selfish. I barked out a laugh. Selfish? That's rich coming from you. Laura stepped closer, her voice turning desperate. Please, honey, just a little bit. You're going to UCLA for free anyway. I cut her off. I owe you nothing. Silence filled the room. I took a step back, shaking my head. You took everything from me and I still found a way to succeed. And now you want me to fix your mess? Laura reached for my hand. Lily, please. I pulled away. No. And with that, I turned around and walked away. Let them drown in the mess they created. I had a future waiting for me and nothing, not even them, was going to stop me from reaching it. I walked away from them that night, but I knew it wasn't over. My parents were the type who never admitted defeat, and I had just handed them the biggest loss of their lives. They would try again. They would scheme, manipulate, do whatever they could to squeeze something out of me. And I was ready for it. For the next few days, they kept up their little charade. Laura suddenly started acting like the doting mother she had never been. She would leave meals on the table with forced smiles, asking how I was feeling, how my day had been. Richard tried to play their reasonable father, pretending we could work things out like a real family. I saw right through them. They weren't sorry. They weren't remorseful. They just wanted money. It didn't take long before their patience snapped. One evening, I came home from Jessica's place and found them waiting in the living room. This time, there was no pretense. No fake warmth. Just cold, sharp desperation. Richard spoke first. Lily sat down. I didn't move. I'm fine standing. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. Look, we've tried to be reasonable. We've tried to talk to you to fix things. But you're making this impossible. Laura crossed her arms. We're drowning, Lily. Do you even care? We have bills to pay. Debts. We need help. I tilted my head. And whose fault is that? Richard's face darkened. We are still your parents. We raised you. We gave you a home, food, everything. The least you could do is help us now. I let out a short laugh. Oh, so now you remember you're my parents? I shook my head. You didn't give me a future. You stole it. And you expect me to feel guilty? Laura's voice rose. We made a mistake. But we're family. You're acting like some stranger. I met her gaze, steady and unwavering. Because that's exactly what you are to me now. The silence that followed was heavy. I could see it in their faces. That final realization that I wasn't going to give in. That I wasn't their gullible little daughter anymore. Richard stood up abruptly. If you walk away from us now, don't expect us to be here when you need us. I smiled. I never needed you. That was the final blow. Laura's face crumpled. But I didn't feel sorry. Not even a little. I turned and walked up to my room, feeling lighter than I had in months. They could threaten. They could guilt trip. But they had no power over me anymore. The next morning I packed my bags. My scholarship covered housing. And I had found a small part-time job near campus to keep me afloat. It wasn't the life I had originally planned, but it was mine. And that was all that mattered. As I stood by the door, ready to leave, Laura watched me with narrowed eyes. So that's it, she asked. You're just walking away? I looked at her, then at Richard. Yeah, I said simply. Neither of them stopped me. I stepped out of that house and never looked back. For the first time in my life, I was free. And they? They were left with nothing but the consequences of their own selfishness. Justice. Karma. Call it whatever you want. I called it winning.